Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode here at Anon Podcast. Today, I'm joined with Robert Baker. Robert Baker has been here before with us in February.
That's right.
Robert is a managing partner of Nimbus Capital, a leading cross-border transaction specialist investment group here that we have in the region. The fund has been going quite well. I won't be talking a lot. I'm gonna let Robert talk a bit more about, I think, in the perfect structure would be for him to tell us a bit more of how has the fund developed since the last time we talked in February. What has been the milestones you've achieved? What has been the positives, maybe also challenges that you encountered during this period? And then touch a bit on the portfolio holdings. I think it will be very interesting for the viewers to understand a bit more how you approach the new transactions that had been occurring. And then finally, we will just wrap up with nice expectations, the capital market expectation, but also expectations on the portfolio companies. So
Absolutely.
thanks, Robert, for coming here and sharing.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you, Paulo, for having me again. Since February, it's been a couple of good, strong months. As you know, the markets is unexpected, a lot of volatility, whether it's public equities or even within the crypto realm as well. But no, within Nimbus, it's been great. We have finalized 4 different transactions in that time frame. So basically, we've negotiated private placement transactions with them, and we have 4 different portfolio companies that we've added into the Nimbus Capital holdings. Majority of them, funny enough, are in the crypto realm. Just because we're investing more and more into it, we're seeing that because there's higher volatility that you can experience, there's higher gains that can be made. Obviously, also higher losses, but the way that we structure our transactions and the way that we mitigate the risk is by hedging, is by making sure that we always are protected in the event of a downward scenario, but also participate in the equity upside in the form of derivatives, right? Equity kickers such as options or warrants that we have that we again negotiate with the counterparty. So it's been a good, 4 months in which we closed 4 transactions. Majority, I would say, over the last 2 months. So sometimes it wasn't one a month. It just happens to be when the market and the executive team is interested in getting these deals done. And it's all about the due diligence that goes through it, understanding the analytical and the technical basis of a company, seeing if they have attractive revenue generating models, good EBITDA margins. And then to us, the whole management team is very important, right? To have a discussion with them, meet them. A lot of travels that I've had to do from Scotland to other parts of Europe to meet these managers, these CEOs, to sit down with them and really understand more and more about the business, as well as see how we can not only invest into them, but also add value. And how we do that is through the different relationships that we have, such as with Anon Capital, a boutique wealth management firm with over 1.3 billion in assets under management, obviously through a lot of the family offices that are held here at Anon, the brokerage house that we have, as well as potential high net worths that also are part of the group. So a lot of the times what we like to do is not only invest into these companies through our structured equity deals, but also then bring these targets, these portfolio companies, to Anon as a potential investment vehicle for them, right? Seeing that Nimbus, which is a part of Anon, is already having a participation and is already incentivized, right, to continue to add value to the business. And because Nimbus is part of Anon might see the benefit in also investing into their equity round because, again, a sister company in Anon was interested in being a part of them. So we're looking to pitch more and more deals to Anon Capital that are portfolio companies of Nimbus, because if we've identified an attractive gem, we want to then share that potential opportunity to Anon as well.
Just stepping a bit back when you talked about the diligence process where you have to do the deal sourcing, then you have to also get to know the stakeholders of the companies and before you finalize a deal, no? just for the viewers to understand, how long does it usually take this whole process? No.
I would say that every deal is different, obviously on a case by case basis, but generally, it can be anywhere from 1 to 4 months, I would say. In some instances, it's very clear the business model of the company and you can understand how they generate those returns. And in some other business models, like more on the crypto side, it can be a bit more complicated to understand, for which you just need more analysis on the back end, right? How are they generating those revenues? Or maybe it's a pre-revenue and they're just burning a lot of cash, right?
Yeah.
So it's really going into under the hood, as they say, and reviewing kind of the financials. But there's also that, I call it a human element, which is meeting the people behind the company and who's managing it and what type of person they are. When things get difficult, how do they react, right?
Yep.
Because that tells a lot about how a business grows. Are you able to sustain and get in the trenches and work hard? Or do you kind of just, pull away and quit? And we're looking for, solution driven managers, those that are looking to find results and work with us the same way we look to work with them. Because in any business, things sometimes get a little tense and you just have to find ways to navigate that while maintaining the respect between business partners, from an investor to a company, right?
Yeah.
That's always very important.
And then if you can just give a little bit details, don't have to be very specific.
Okay.
Because some things are also confidential, of course. But on the latest deals that have been gone through Nimbus, how what were the companies that you analyzed, the one that you actually um, you know invested in or brought it back into the portfolio? If you can just but give us a sense of what is the type of the companies you're looking at the moment and how they work in the system.
Absolutely. So a lot of these, like I mentioned, are within the crypto realm. And what I mean by that is they deal very much with like blockchain technologies. And for instance, one of the companies we look at is a company that helps tokenize RWAs, and RWAs are real world assets, right? So basically, imagine, for instance, like gold, right? Gold is a real asset. What we're seeing now is that really anything can be tokenized. And by tokenizing it, you're adding value because you're letting buyers and sellers, take advantage of that asset and be able to buy some of it. And the more buyers and sellers are, there's more value, which then in turns creates that intrinsic value to go up, right? Same, for example, for Bitcoin, which is what's happening as people have adopted Bitcoin and has become more and more important in today's financial system, from, not only a payments platform, but more transparency from banks. You can transfer 24/7, less intermediary banking fees. And it just becomes now more of a trusted source where it becomes kind of a reserve, right? Where you're not necessarily printing US dollars, which then creates inflation, versus already having a reserve of Bitcoin where there's a finite amount, right? So taking that strategy, companies like this business that we invested into looks to tokenize different assets where there's a finite amount, and that creates the value for then where it becomes almost like a listed security. In other words, like a publicly trading company, whereby you can buy into it and sell out of it if you want to. And other individuals around the world 24/7 can have access to it, versus NASDAQ, where you have to be an American to have access to an American account and only trade from 9 to 4 p.m., right? Which is why, again, us as a fund at Nimbus, we, are taking what the market's giving us. I would say as of last year, we started where it was 70% public equities and about 30% more in crypto. And now over this year in 2025, we've shifted that to be almost 50-50, where 50% is public equities and the other 50% is crypto, because we're seeing more of adoption from traditional investors that want to have more exposure into crypto because there's more volatility, which then again can create more gains. So it's a very attractive how we evolve based on what the market is doing. And that is always something that as a business, as a group, whatever the market gives you and it is assigned for you to either adapt and take advantage of the opportunity, or stay behind and, not be forgotten, but basically lose out business that you can work.
No, that's very interesting. It's funny because I remember now I had a business trip to New York last year.
Yeah.
I was with a very big investment firm in the US globally, and they also were talking about you're already doing for some clients, so they open an account with them. They tokenize every asset you have. So really, they made a joke, not joke, but it's a real life situation that you could do. That is, you would have, for example, oil, right? So they have oil, barrel of oil, and or you can have a piece of art, like you said. You can tokenize that, and then when you want to buy a coffee, you could use a normal coffee store, and you just pay with your card of their company, their bank card, and it would sell automatically while you tokenized. So you have even daily liquidity, which I like. Wow, this is amazing because in the end, you can use anything you want to tokenize it. If it's peer to peer, so if there's people that want to buy it, you sell it. You got your money, and then you use it on your real life issue. No.
No, it's very interesting. You can tokenize anything, even like real estate. And there's a lot of big real estate firms that are starting to tokenize
A little piece of the asset. You don't have to sell the whole asset. That's what they were telling you. They were working on. So
And it's also, I think you mentioned art as well, right? Like for a painting, the Mona Lisa, you could buy, instead of shares, or buy the tokens of that specific art. And then that's where the whole NFT kind of craze during the pandemic came out, was basically having collectible items that are unique. And if you're the owner, you're the only one that has it. Now, obviously that market became very saturated, and I still see value in that, but it's going to take a lot more time in order to, make it kind of even throughout, because anybody can come up with an NFT, but how do you add value to it, right? What separates yours to mine if we're all creating it, right?
exactly.
That's where potentially like the Van Goghs, right, or the Picassos differentiate themselves, because they are experts in their field. Same for any digital asset that you come up with. You need to have a track record, or you need to have to build that trust with your community, for then that adds value, which then makes people want to then buy the tokens of that asset, right?
Yeah.
Of the digital assets.
And I'll just go in a bit more to the market in general. Well, we have been seeing a lot of volatility since the last time we talked in February. With all the tariffs and those announcements by Trump, then the polls, and it looks like your markets rally strongly after it fell almost to a bear market in some indices, no? And now we're back to near all-time high in the S&P 500.
Yep.
So if you have expectations for this end of this year? I know that's a very hard question. No one really knows exactly what's going to happen by the end of the year. A lot of things in play. But what is expectations at Nimbus Capital at the moment?
Yeah, great question. As you mentioned, if I knew the market, I would put all my money into it if I knew what was going to happen. But no, I believe that we may be coming out of a bear/recession, and I believe that the market is going to go towards an upward trajectory. It's, obviously with the whole Israel and Iran situation, and the US being involved, affects the whole market, which then affects oil, which then affects prices and inflation. It's hard to tell, because we're kind of in this inflection point where things can go wrong and a World War III can break out. But no, at least with our thought process here at Nimbus, we think that it is going to be a very successful end of the year, this second half. I think the S&P 500 is going to continue to grow. I think on the crypto side, Bitcoin is going to reach an all-time high by the end of the year. And I think there's going to be a lot more liquidity, right? There's going to be a lot more buyers interested to, gain some of these blue chip stocks and really ride it up as the market rewards those that stayed in, or at least that participated at this stage in which we're in. But again, you never know, right? So
Of course.
what it is today might not have been the one.
Right. So
Yeah.
And I think like final words on why now, talking to potential investors and just viewers in general, why would it be a good entry point to consider Nimbus in their portfolio?
Yeah, great question. So for 2024, we ended the year with 38.5% for the full year, which is a great return. We wanted to generate upwards of 25%. So we were above 13% on that, which is great.
Great.
For this year, we are on good pace. The growth has been slow just because, again, we're very much dependent on how the market performs, and it's been mainly kind of a bear market. So we are allocating all the right positions to then ride this wave. Based on your last question of where do we see the market, we expect it to go up. So we're doing a lot more long purchases and calls on these different opportunities. A lot of the positions that we have are basically derivatives that we have structured where potentially we ride that options in a positive way, and we're just kind of playing this waiting game of hopefully the market rewards us for, based on our analysis, it having a bull upward trajectory. So we do believe that there's going to be a lot of growth over the next few months. We have a lot of warrants and options that are already in the money that we're ready to execute, but we're speaking with management team of these companies as we provide more capital to them, making sure that we always are acting in a fiduciary duty to our investors and capitalizing on those returns. So I think it will be another very good positive year for Nimbus. Again, reaching upwards of that 25% return from a track record basis. And listen, we're very much interested always in attractive family offices or investors that want to park their smart capital into the alternative space, which would be a hedge fund, right? That not only is based out of Panama, but is one of the only ones that generates annualized liquid returns that is not locked up. As in, an investor can come in today and within a year be able to exit their profits or returns, which is not traditional in most funds. Most funds, you're locked up for at least 2 years or even longer. So yeah, it's a great tool and product that we at Nimbus have. And then as part of the relationship within On Capital, whenever family offices are brought in and they want to have, maybe a more high reward with a lower risk take on the alternative space, we're always happy to entertain them, speak to them, and provide comfort and monthly kind of fact sheets as to how we're doing at Nimbus.
Great. Well, I just want to thank you a lot for your time.
Of course.
Robert, I think that, like you probably mentioned, there's a lot of opportunities in the area that he's investing with his firm. Track record has been very good since inception. Last year was great. This year, he's also working hard, and we hope that we will continue having successful track record going forward. And as you have been listening here, the due diligence process is very extensive. It's not like in the public side where you can have much more information. It's very important for them to get to know what they're getting into. They travel, they meet in person, right? So, and they're always monitoring these positions as they go through it, until they decide to finalize the investment. So thanks a lot for joining, Robert, again.
You, Paulo. I appreciate you. Hopefully we'll make these a little bit more often instead of 4 months.
You're always invited.
Anyway, same to you.
Thank you a lot, and keep in touch. Keep watching our videos. We're gonna have some very interesting upcoming videos in the following weeks, right? Thank you.
The opinions expressed on this podcast are their own and do not necessarily reflect the values, ideals, or positions of On Capital.